Hello, and welcome to the DigiPreneur Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Shashidhar CN, and today's episode, Season 2, Episode 8, we deal with the topic of SEO is Dead. Hello, AEO. If you want to know more about entrepreneurship, digital marketing, then you can join our VIP community for free only for a limited time by going to vip.digipreneurbusinesshub.com. That is vip.digipreneurbusinesshub.com. That is vip.digipreneurbusinesshub.com. Let's keep the session interactive. Do like, share, and post your questions to us. We are happy to respond to your questions and queries. Okay, so now let's get started.
Okay, so we've all been spending so much time trying to master this whole SEO thing, right? Getting our websites to the top of search results. But, lately there's been this buzz, almost like a panic, that SEO is dead. And now this new thing, AEO, is taking over. So we've brought in an expert to help us kind of unpack all of this, figure out what's real, what's hyped, and what we actually need to know about AEO.
Well, it's interesting because, it's not just about like a change in terminology or anything. AEO, Ask Engine Optimization, really represents like a fundamental shift in how we even think about search. It's a move away from just keywords and more toward natural language.
So instead of us trying to guess which keywords Google's algorithm is going to like, we should be optimizing for how real people actually ask questions.
Exactly. Think about how you use voice search. You don't say best pizza near me delivery. You say, hey Siri, where's the best pizza place that delivers?
Yeah, and I bet AEO is all about getting those answers right at the top. In those little boxes that Google just loves to show.
Yeah, you're talking about featured snippets.
Yeah.
And yes, landing in that position 0 spot is a key goal of AEO. It's about becoming like the most authoritative and concise answer to a very specific question.
Okay, so that's a pretty big difference from traditional SEO, which I guess has always been more about ranking for like general topics. But tell me, what's the real advantage of being in that featured snippet spot, besides just like being seen first?
Well, I think it's really about user experience and trust. When someone gets a direct answer to their question right away, they're more likely to engage with your content. And Google sees that engagement as a sign of authority, which can really boost your rankings overall.
So it's not even just about voice search then. This applies to regular typed searches too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even when people are typing, they are phrasing their searches in a much more conversational way. So AEO helps you align your content with that shift.
So it sounds like SEO isn't exactly dead, but it's definitely evolving.
I wouldn't even say evolving. I would say it's expanding. SEO is still crucial for the foundational website optimization. Things like site structure, backlinks, keyword research. But AEO is kind of like a specialized layer on top of all of that. It's focused on answering very specific questions and getting those highly visible featured snippets.
All right, so it's not an either situation. It's more like having a toolbox with different tools for different jobs.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the more you understand those tools, the better you'll be able to tailor your strategy for different goals.
Speaking of different goals,
Yeah.
how would someone actually go about implementing AEO? Like, what are the concrete steps involved?
Well, I think it starts with understanding your audience's questions. Think about what they're typing into Google, what they're asking Siri or Alexa. Tools like Answer the Public can really give you great insights into these real-world queries.
So it's kind of like market research, but for search.
Precisely. You're researching the language that people use, the specific ways they phrase their questions, because that's how you'll structure your content for AEO.
And I'm guessing that content is going to look quite different from traditional SEO content, right?
Yes. AEO content is all about delivering very concise, direct answers. Think FAQ pages that are structured with schema markup, or short videos that actually demonstrate a solution. You want to give people the information they need as quickly and clearly as possible.
Okay, now you're getting into some more technical terms like schema markup. What exactly is that, and how does that fit into AEO?
So schema markup is basically code that you add to your website. It helps search engines understand your content better. So let's say you have a recipe on your website. Schema markup will tell Google, hey, this is a recipe with ingredients, instructions, cooking time, all of that. And that way Google can pull that information directly into the search results. Maybe even create a rich snippet with photos and stuff like that.
So it's like adding labels to a filing cabinet so you can find exactly what you need instantly.
Exactly. It makes your content much more digestible for search engines.
Yeah.
Which is really crucial for AEO.
This all sounds very strategic and, frankly, a little complex. It's not just about throwing keywords onto a page anymore.
Yeah, AEO requires a much deeper understanding of how search engines are evolving.
Yeah.
And how people are actually searching now. But the payoff can be significant, More visibility, higher engagement, and ultimately more authority in your niche.
This is where it gets really interesting to me. If AEO is all about answering these specific questions, wouldn't that lead to a more fragmented search experience overall? Like everyone's getting these hyper-specific answers, but maybe missing the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's a really insightful observation. And it ties into a broader conversation about the future of search and how AEO is shaping not just how we find information, but how we actually think about it.
Okay, so let's dive into that. What does AEO mean for the future of search? Are we heading towards a world where Google just reads our minds and gives us exactly what we need without us even having to ask?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to answer that, I think we need to look at how AEO is already changing the way we consume and interact with information online. So think about how we used to search. We would type in a few keywords, scroll through pages of results, and kind of piece together information from all these different sources. It was a very active process.
Right. It was like being a detective following clues and trying to piece together the puzzle.
Exactly. But with AEO, the information just kind of comes to us. We ask a question, we get a precise answer often without even having to click through to a website.
So it's more passive. Like, are we losing some of that intellectual curiosity because it's so easy to just get answers?
Yeah, that's the concern, isn't it? Are we sacrificing depth of knowledge for speed and convenience?
And what about serendipity? You know those accidental discoveries you make when you're just kind of browsing?
Yeah.
And you stumble across something totally unexpected?
That's a great point. AEO is all about giving you the most relevant answer to your query. But sometimes the most relevant answer is not the most interesting or the most thought-provoking.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the potential downsides here. It's not all sunshine and roses with AEO.
Exactly. Like any tool, AEO can be used for good or for ill. It's really up to us as users and creators to be mindful of its limitations and to make sure that we're not sacrificing critical thinking just for the sake of convenience.
So what can we do? How do we kind of embrace the benefits of AEO without falling into those traps?
Well, I think one thing is to just be aware of like the potential for filter bubbles. If we only ever see information that aligns with our existing beliefs, our perspectives can become really narrow and limited.
So we need to like actively seek out diverse viewpoints, challenge our own assumptions.
Absolutely. Don't just let algorithms dictate your reality. Be curious, explore different perspectives, and really engage in critical thinking.
That sounds like pretty good advice for life in general, not just for navigating the world of search.
It's true, but it's especially important now in the age of AEO, where information is becoming increasingly personalized and tailored to our individual preferences.
Okay, so let's say I'm on board with all of this. I understand the benefits and the risks of AEO. What are some practical things that I can do to implement AEO effectively?
Well, first, I would say, think about the questions your target audience is asking. What are their pain points? What are they searching for online?
Right, we talked about tools like Answer the Public for that, but how do I actually structure my content to align with AEO?
Think about those featured snippets we discussed earlier. They're often very short, concise answers lists, or even tables sometimes. So your goal is to create content that could realistically be featured in one of those snippets.
So instead of writing like a long, in-depth blog post about a topic, maybe I break it down into like a series of FAQs with very clear, concise answers.
That's a great example. Or let's say you're a plumber. Instead of just having a page on your website that lists your services, you could create a short video demonstrating how to fix a leaky faucet.
Yeah.
That kind of content is much more likely to rank well for AEO because it's providing a direct answer to a specific question.
And that video would be a great example of content that's both useful and engaging. It's not just about cramming keywords onto a page anymore. It's about creating content that genuinely helps people.
Exactly. And that's where the real power of AEO lies. It's not about just gaming the system. It's about aligning your content with the way people are actually searching for information.
Okay, so we've talked about understanding your audience, creating concise and engaging content. What about the technical side of things, like schema markup, for example? Is that something that everyone needs to be using for AEO?
Well, schema markup is definitely a powerful tool for AEO. Remember, it's that extra layer of code that helps search engines understand your content better.
Like telling Google, hey, this is a recipe, not a poem.
Exactly. And the more Google understands your content, the more likely it is to feature it in those coveted snippets.
Okay, but isn't schema markup kind of complicated? Like, do I need to be a coder to use it?
Not necessarily. There are plenty of tools and plugins out there that can help you implement schema markup without writing any code.
So it's not as intimidating as it sounds.
Not at all. And the benefits can be really significant.
You mentioned earlier that AEO is constantly evolving. What are some things on the horizon that people should be paying attention to?
Well, one trend to watch is the increasing sophistication of natural language processing. As AI gets better at understanding all the nuances of human language, AEO will become even more important.
So we need to keep learning and adapting.
Absolutely. The digital landscape is always changing, and AEO is no exception. I think the key is to just stay curious, experiment with different strategies, and never stop learning.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the benefits and the risks of AEO, how to implement it effectively, and what the future might hold. What are some key takeaways you want our listeners to remember from all of this?
Well, I think first and foremost, AEO is not a replacement for SEO. They're really complementary strategies that work best when they're used together. SEO provides that solid foundation, while AEO helps you target specific questions and capture those valuable featured snippets.
So it's about striking a balance between the two approaches.
Exactly. And remember, AEO is about more than just ranking higher in the search results. It's about providing a better user experience, building trust with your audience, and ultimately becoming a go-to resource in your niche.
This has been incredibly insightful, but before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the potential impact of AEO on the way we consume and interact with information.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic, isn't it? As AEO becomes more sophisticated, it's likely to have a pretty profound impact on how we learn, how we make decisions, and even how we connect with each other.
It's almost like AEO is this bridge between the way we think and the way that search engines work, a way of kind of translating our natural language queries into the language of algorithms.
That's a great way to put it. And as that bridge becomes more robust, it has the potential to make information more accessible and personalized than ever before.
But as we discussed, there are also some potential downsides to consider. The more we rely on algorithms to filter and deliver information, the greater the risk of creating echo chambers and limiting our exposure to diverse perspectives.
Yeah, it feels like we're almost on the verge of like a major shift in how we access and process information online. It's exciting, but also a little bit unnerving.
Yeah, it is a bit like standing at the edge of uncharted territory. You know, we can see the potential benefits, but we also need to be mindful of the potential pitfalls.
So how do we kind of navigate this new landscape responsibly? What can we do as individuals to make sure that AEO is serving us rather than the other way around?
Well, I think it starts with cultivating a healthy skepticism. Don't take everything you see online at face value, especially when it comes to those quick answers served up in those featured snippets.
So we need to do our own fact-checking, not just blindly trust the algorithm. Exactly. Remember, AEO is still a relatively new technology. There are bound to be biases and inaccuracies baked into those algorithms. So it's up to us to really use our critical thinking skills and evaluate the information that we're being presented with.
And that means being willing to kind of dig deeper, to look beyond those surface-level answers.
Precisely. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from exploring multiple perspectives, from challenging our own assumptions, from getting a little uncomfortable even.
It's like the difference between reading a headline and reading an entire article, or watching a short clip versus a full-length documentary.
I like that analogy. AEO could be a great starting point for research, but it shouldn't be the end point. It's up to us to take that initial spark of information and turn it into a much deeper understanding.
Okay, so to recap, we need to be aware of the potential biases in AEO. We need to be willing to fact-check and dig deeper, and we need to actively seek out diverse perspectives. Anything else that we should keep in mind as we venture into this new world of search?
I think one more thing. Don't forget the power of human connection. Talk to people, engage in conversations, share your own insights and experiences.
So it's not just about interacting with algorithms, it's about interacting with each other.
Exactly. AEO can be a powerful tool for learning and discovery, but it can't replace the richness and complexity of human interaction.
Well said. It seems like the future of search isn't really about choosing between AI and human intelligence, but about finding a way for both to kind of coexist and complement each other.
I couldn't agree more. And ultimately, it's up to us to shape that future in a way that benefits humanity as a whole.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. I feel like I have a much better understanding of AEO now, not just the technical aspects, but also the broader implications for the future of how we access and process information.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation. AEO is a rapidly evolving field, and there's still so much more to explore.
Well, I'm excited to see what the future holds. And I'm especially excited to see how all of you listening will use this knowledge to create amazing content and connect with your audience in new and innovative ways. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AEO. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the ever-changing digital landscape. Until then, happy optimizing, everyone.